And welcome back, everyone, to Sitting Yass with the Brass. I'm Adam Brass, and this is part 2 of our WrestleMania 20 discussion. Part 1 I've already uploaded, going over how I got to New York, why I went to New York, why I chose this WrestleMania, and now we're finally here, day of the event, March 14th, 2004, and we're just going to go over the card and some of the things that happened on that day. First, couple stories heading into this thing. Like I said previously, my hotel was literally across the street from Madison Square Garden. So one of the cool things is that afternoon I went into Madison Square Garden, and since you don't have to give your ticket to get in the building, you actually aren't asked for your ticket till you get to the gate, your respected gate. I was able to get in the building and buy all my merchandise ahead of time and take it back to my room so I didn't have to lug it with me because I spent a lot of money. My plan was to take a lot of money. I think I saved well over $600 so that I could buy as many things as I wanted to and still buy a lot of stuff for other people because I wasn't sure if I was ever coming back to WrestleMania. And one of the things I bought was a replica championship belt right here, this jersey right here. I got a lot of stuff, so it was cool to be able to take that back to the room. And then, of course, when I went back, there's just a sea of people waiting to get in to WrestleMania. And it's just so many people you can't tell where it really begins or ends. All I know is I don't wait in lines. I hate waiting in lines. I hate to get somewhere to prevent waiting in line, and I hate to be at the back of a line. So I always try to find my way around the situation, so to speak. And in this one, I was thinking, well, maybe I'm small enough, I'm by myself, I can just kind of squirm my way through all these people. That worked for about getting through 3 people. Didn't make any headway. And then all of a sudden, I hear, EMT, EMT. And these 4 EMTs are running into the crowd. And they're all hooked up. They're all holding onto the back of each other's shirts. So now they've created this snake. And the crowd's just parting for them as they work their way through. And as the 4th one, the last one, comes by me, I don't know why, but I just throw my finger in the back of his belt loop, and I become the 5th member of this chain. He doesn't notice, because he's just focused on holding on to who he's supposed to hold on to and moving forward. And so, as I'm part of this chain, we move all the way through the crowd, all the way up into the very barricade where everyone's waiting, and as they go through the barricade, I let go, and now I'm right there, number 1 in line. And I remember looking next to me, and it seemed like the people around me couldn't really figure out how I got there. All they knew was that I wasn't there like 20 seconds ago. But it was pretty cool. In the DVD and rewatch, you can watch it on the WWE Network, there's a part where they interview people from around the world. How far have you traveled to come to WrestleMania? And the first guy they interview, his name was Brett, and he is from England, and he actually stood right next to me while we waited to get into the building to have our tickets scanned. And so it was cool. I got to talk to him, to see him on the DVD, see him on the pay-per-view actually still. It was pretty cool. I stayed in contact with him for a couple of years after that. But the only thing that bugs me is I was standing right next to him when they picked him. And even when they interview him, you can't see me. It's like they hit the perfect angle to where you can't see me. But I was right there while they did it. Yeah, that would have been my shining moment for sure. But, yep. And then, of course, once the gates opened, the barricade was removed. Then you go to your gates, and they scan your ticket there. Now, my nephew asked me, perfect question the other night when we were doing the rewatch. He said, did you ever think that maybe your ticket wasn't real, like it was a forfeited, created ticket? And I said, wow, now that you bring that up, I did think about it. But here's the crazy thing. I didn't think about it. I didn't think that this wasn't had any problem with legitimacy at all or a counterfeit. I didn't have any thought of that until I was literally 6 people out from them scanning my ticket. There was a guy who scanned your ticket, and there was a little pole with a red light and a green light. If your ticket was good, turned green, he let you go. If it was bad, it turned red, and you didn't get to go. How I know? Because there was 2 people, about 4 people ahead of me, and their little paper copies turned red. And so now here I was, the greatest moment of my life, and all of a sudden it's all washed away, and all I can think of is the panic that this ticket may not be real. I didn't even think of the possibility, and there's a possibility now, when he scans my ticket, it turns red. There's not a damn thing he can do for me other than tell me I'm not getting in, and every dollar, every penny, everything I've spent to be here, and this is as close as I will get. So for the next, it was probably a minute that I had to wait for him to scan my ticket. Felt like a lifetime. And it's just like the movies. When he finally did get to me, he took my ticket, he scans it, and it's like you could see the laser beam coming out slowly from the gun to hit the ticket. And then it hits it. And everything just moving in slow motion, and the fear and the panic. And then finally you look up at the light after you hear it beep, and the green light come on. Oh, and then all the stress is gone, and you can enjoy the moment now. But one of the things I had talked about in the previous video was the reason I chose this WrestleMania is because I didn't want to pass up the opportunity if it ended up being Bret Hart versus Kurt Angle, because that was an internet rumor. It did not happen. What ended up happening was Kurt Angle became #1 contender and got a chance at the WWE title. And when that happened, I was sure in my heart, as I've ever been, that that's why I was coming to this WrestleMania, to see my modern-day hero, Kurt Angle, win the WWE Championship in Madison Square Garden, where Bret Hart had won it 10 years earlier. Well, I was there. It was all put into place, and that's why I was here. And so that's why I bought the replica belt, to commemorate Kurt Angle winning it. So I decided I'd buy it early so I didn't have to lug it around. That's before I realized I could just go across the street. But I bought it and had every intention of engraving Kurt Angle's name on the blank plate to celebrate him winning the title. We'll get to that later, his match with Kurt Angle, or his match with Eddie Guerrero. But first, let's talk about the opening of the show. Great opening video montage, great song selection. The video montage basically goes over the history of Madison Square Garden, especially WrestleMania Madison Square Garden history, and a great tie-in to the matches that are happening that night. And of course, it ends with the slogan, which was the slogan of the show, where it all begins again. Vince McMahon, Shane McMahon, and the first newborn baby of this fourth generation of McMahons that is part of this business now. And it was a pretty good moment to solidify it really is beginning again, and it's going to continue to carry on. So, let's see here. America the Beautiful. Harlem Boys Church Choir. I didn't expect it. There was nothing wrong with it, but it was a little underwhelming. Of all the choices I think they could have had for the 20th anniversary, I'm not sure why they went this route. But, it is what it is. It wasn't horrible. It wasn't like Rockin' Robin at WrestleMania 5 or Mean Gene at WrestleMania 1, but definitely seen some better performances on the marquee stage here. So, like I said, it is what it is. But let's get to the first match of the night. John Cena, Big Show, U.S. Championship. And now this is John Cena's very first WrestleMania match. And he's getting an opportunity to open up the show with the Big Show, U.S. title on the line. Now, at the time, I am not a John Cena fan. I'm not about the rapper gimmick and all that. Just wasn't my thing. But it was over like Rover. Fans loved it. You watch that match back now, and it's just so weird to see 100% of that audience just eating up everything he says, everything he does, and he could do no wrong to that crowd. They loved it. Like I said, I wasn't a fan, so I cheered for Big Show. What was pretty cool is during the rewatch, my daughter, who's 5 years old, she's watching it. She's never seen John Cena like that before. And she even, without me saying anything, she goes, "Hey, is this his first WrestleMania?" I said, "It sure is." And she goes, "Oh, because he sure looks funny." He dressed very differently. And then, of course, he was given his little spiel, his rhyme, before the match starts. And she just started laughing. She's like, "I can't believe," she goes, "everything he says rhymes." And, and that was it. That was the shtick. And it worked. It got him over. And as far as the match was, I just remember the crowd was so into that match. And even for not being a John Cena fan, you had to respect how over he was. And he did a good job. It was a good match. Because you have to remember, this is the time where Big Show isn't the most lean and mean and easy to work with. And John Cena did a good job. He cheated to win, which the fans loved even more, because that was kind of part of his spiel, even though he was a face. And John Cena gets his first championship in the company, and he gets the U.S. title. And that place blew up when he got the belt, too. So it was pretty cool, and I'll never forget, that was a great way to open it and kind of set the tone. I remember looking back at it, I would have rated it a 3-star, 3 out of 5 stars, and rewatching it now, I upped it up to about 3.5. It was good psychology, everything made sense. Big Show was a believable giant. John Cena sold everything for him, and in typical fashion, John Cena, even though he was the great John Cena, he's still green, and to get past Big Show, he needed the brass knucks. He just wasn't going to go over clean on the Big Show like that. So I think it worked really well to get the show on the road. Next on the card, the Fatal 4-Way Tag Team match for the Raw Tag Team Championships. Booker T, RVD, the champs, defending against the Dudley Boys, Mark Jindred, Garrison Cade, and La Resistance. Yes, La Resistance. My favorite tag team, just because I like to say their name, and I always thought Howard Finkel said it very well too, with the nice little accent. But anyway, I hated the idea of this match. I hated it. I hate Fatal 4-Way tag matches. This is the time now where we're finally getting to the point in WrestleMania history where they're creating matches just to get as many names on the card as they can. And this is definitely one of those moments where it's just about getting people out there. And it didn't do anything for me. And then the worst part is the Dudley Boys are completely over because they're the hometown boys. And in typical WrestleMania fashion, that means they're not going to win, and they don't. Booker T and RVD retain. It was a so-so match. There wasn't a whole lot going on in it other than them constantly tagging each other in and out, a couple spots that were humorous. I remember at the time I gave it about a 2-star rating. Watching it back now makes me feel exactly the same way I did back then, so I kept it at a 2-star rating. But, it is what it is. Sometimes you just have those matches to get everyone on the card. I wish they would have done something differently, especially for the 20th anniversary, but yeah, I get it. Next on the card, Christian versus Chris Jericho. Now, this may have been this was the best match on the undercard. These two are solid workers. They had a really good story coming into it, which included Trish Stratus, and they told a good story in that ring, a good battle back and forth, and the finish saw us see Trish Stratus turning heel and her becoming an item with all Christian. And that's how he got the win. So, not the kind of finish that a solid, really good match like that deserves, but when you're telling a story, sometimes you have to have those kind of finishes. So it worked, and I had no problem with it because of how good the match was. I rated it back then a 4-star, and I kept it at a 4-star. It is a solid match, not one I have any issue rewatching time and time again. Next on the card, it's a 3-on-2 handicap match. Evolution versus the Rock and Sock Connection. It's funny, I look back at this match very differently. At the time, I was a little upset because I thought that Evolution... At the time, Evolution was still new, so it wasn't a big deal. So I kind of thought that there was something actually more for Mick Foley and The Rock, especially The Rock. Another thing I remember is... So I don't know about any of you, but if you've ever been in a place where the people around you get so excited, and there's just the old phrase, you can cut the electricity with a knife. Okay, I can count on my fingers how many times I've felt this in my life, where the energy in the room is so powerful, your heart feels like it's going to explode. And it's just something you almost can't even explain with words. And the first time I ever felt that was in 2001 when The Rock came to Denver. And his music hit, If You Smell. And as soon as it hit, I felt this energy like I've never felt before because of the crowd's excitement. It lasted only about 3 seconds, but it was just this jolt that I wasn't expecting. And it was like a drug because I've always wanted to feel it again. And so I hadn't felt it since. And so here comes WrestleMania 20. I'm like... I'm ready to feel it when The Rock comes out. And when The Rock's music hits, If You Smell, there's nothing. That crowd did not react the same way because so much had changed since 2001. This was a Rock now that was taking more time off to go to Hollywood. There wasn't that same excitement. We knew there was nothing left for The Rock after this. He's moving on along. So that already kind of put me in a down mood because I was really hoping I could feel it again. And I didn't. And of course, I felt like the match should have been won by Foley and Rock, being that this was probably their last time in the ring, or their last time in a long time. Foley being the hometown boy, and the hometown curse hits again, and Evolution wins. And I just felt, yet again, very underwhelming, the finish of this. But that was at the time. When I look back now, it's amazing. This is like a dream match now. It's like a dream match now. Batista and Orton and Ric Flair and The Rock and Mick Foley. And they're all in great condition. It's not like anyone's lagging. And you know what I really appreciate looking back now is they didn't treat Ric Flair like he was just the old man. He didn't just jump in when things were going good and get his shots and then tag out. They treated him like legitly he was still in the prime of his career. They sold for him. He worked hard for them. It was cool. It was one of the last times in his career, towards the twilight of that career, where he was still Ric Flair. It wasn't the old man that was just getting the ball shots in to get by. And so it was really cool to see how they respected him in that manner and gave him that so late in his career. I really could appreciate that now. And looking at how it all kind of evolves all this time later with all those guys, like I said, it's a dream match. And I wish I could have appreciated it more at the time, but you really can't when things like that. The only thing I look back now that I would have changed, I think the only thing that made the match a little awkward was 3-on-2. Kind of messed with the flow of things. I think they should have made it a 3-on-3. They should have added someone else to the mix. I'm sure you could have brought some other legend or some other old-timer who wasn't quite over the hill into that and made it just as good. It would, I think, would have given more of a balance to it. And then maybe you could have had Rock Foley go over. But nothing wrong with the way it ended. Now that I look back at it, Evolution was up and coming, and it made sense for them to get the win over them. Back then, I gave it a 2.5. And now that I look back at it, 3.5, 4 stars, to be honest. They did a good job. They worked well with each other. A lot of those spots between Flair and Rock, and Flair doing a lot of the old stuff he still did in his prime, and he did it well. So definitely one that I enjoyed looking back on now and appreciate it. Next on the card, we go from to It's the Tori Wilson Sable against Miss Jackie and Stacy Keibler in the Playboy evening gown match. Well, a lot has changed in pro wrestling, has it not? I get it. I get why they did the match. Playboy is a huge deal for WWE back then. Who was going to be the Playboy cover girl, da-da-da. And that year they couldn't get a new one. So that's the year that they went with Tori and Sable together. No, I did not buy this myself. This was a gift. Carl and Miss Paulette, thank you very much. Still hold on to that. One day, hopefully get it signed. I do have autographs from both these girls, just not on this one Playboy. So, hopefully down the line. But, you know, that's what it was meant to do. Push the Playboy thing, push the Playboy title. And then it was meant for these girls to get out there with some TNA, which everyone was all about. Gosh, it's just so hard to watch. Because, especially with the commentary, when you listen to Taz and Michael Cole, the commentary, it does nothing but objectify these women. It does, they can't even take it seriously when the girls are even trying to do some wrestling here and there. It just objectifies them for their bodies and their looks, and wow, how far we've come. I look back and I watch it through remembering as a 20-year-old who lived in the era, and I had no problem with it then. But looking back now, especially as a father, I couldn't imagine showing that to my daughter now. And I am ashamed that when she gets older, she will watch it, and she'll just shake her head. But hopefully she'll do so with the pride of how far these women have come. And they don't have to do that anymore. They're not relegated to that anymore. But Sable and Tori Wilson get the win, the big Playboy yeehaw, and then they did a little kiss on the cheek at the end. So, they didn't take up too much time. Like I said, did what they're supposed to do, sell the Playboy name. But moving right along, I didn't even think my rating right here. I almost couldn't find it. I rated it a 1 then. And I rated a 1 now. It was definitely the about as bottom as it gets. Actually, I take that back. We're about to see it get even worse in this show. But anywho, next match on the card is the Cruiserweight Battle Royal Championship Gauntlet BS. So if you remember it, they basically got 10 cruiserweights, 2 start in the ring. When someone gets pinned or submits or quits and gets counted out, disqualified, then the next guy jumps in, and you keep going until the last guy, who's Chavo, the champion, which makes no sense. He jumps in, and then you have a battle for the cruiserweight title. In my heart of hearts, I always believed that this match should have been Rey Mysterio versus Billy Kidman. 2 of the greatest cruiserweights, not just WCW, but in all of pro wrestling history up to that point. And to me, they missed that opportunity which I think would have been the greatest cruiserweight match in WrestleMania history, maybe all of WWE history to this day. But yet again, we have to go with the whole notion that we get as many names on the card as we can. So they did what they did. It's easier to watch now than it was then because I was just upset that they were doing it. And now when you look back, everyone did their job. They got their moments in. They got their shots in. Yet again, it's one of those things. It is what it is. Then I rated it a 2, and now I give it a 3.5 because those guys did work hard. They were put in a rough situation, and there was even a spot in there where Billy Kidman gets pretty jacked, and I never realized how messed up he is. He jammed up his neck there. He came in for a shooting star press off the top rope to the outside, and before he could do a full rotation, top of his head actually pops Nunzio in the jaw. And so Nunzio looked pretty messed up, taking the headbutt to the jaw as hard as he did, and then Kidman was working pretty stiff after that, but he still worked hard. So, that is what it is. Chavo retains his belt, so, yeah. Next on the card, we talked about things getting from worse to even worse. Goldberg versus Brock Lesnar. Oh, man. Now, there's been times where the audience hijacks a match, right? Well, this was the first time that I'd ever seen a crowd hijack a match, and I just happened to be in the crowd. That crowd just ate those two alive. Lesnar's on his way out. We publicly know he's on his way out. Goldberg's on his way out. We publicly know he's going out. Any other situation, these two people would have been behind this match of two, big brutes with the recognition they had, but with the people knowing what they knew, they ate these two alive. And these guys worked such a slow match, it gave the crowd so much time to eat them alive. And you could see the frustration, you could see the anger in both these guys. And they tried to get through the match. Unfortunately, between the two of them, you don't really have a leader to take hold of this match. And before you know it, nobody cares. Nobody cares. From the "you suck" chants to the boring chants to this match sucks chants. You started getting chants of we want Brett, we want Hogan, we want Randy. If you watch the replay, you'll see people in the whole section on the hard camera looking up. And they looking up for like a full minute, even more. Why? There's a guy dressed up like Hulk Hogan a section over from me, and he's doing the Hogan bit, and the crowd would prefer to look at him and cheer for him, chanting Hogan, chanting "We want Hogan," than they were looking at this match. It was rough. It was bad. It's crazy. I'm not a Goldberg guy whatsoever, so I could care less at this time. And then, of course, Goldberg's big return, 2016, I was there in Denver for that. But they ended up getting it right along those storylines when they picked it up. That's what they should have done here. This match should have been a 60-second match, giving the crowd zero time to get into it, do your bit, get the heck out. But yeah, I've never seen two guys eaten alive like that. You almost feel bad for them, just how bad it got. At the time, I rated it a 1, and looking back at it now, knowing what I know even more so, and remembering things, I rate it a -1. If you can give a negative, I gave this a -1. If there's ever a time you could just yank a match from a card, for everyone's benefit, the talent, the show, and the fans, this is one of those moments, and it's unfortunate. Goldberg ended up going over, but really all the crowd wanted at the end was to see Austin stun both of them, and that's what they got, and they would have been happy with that happening 30 seconds in. Let's see here. Next, we have to have another tag team fatal 4-way, this time for the SmackDown tag belts. This one wasn't as bad because you had a little bit better talent in there. You had Rikishi and Sky 2 Hotty, the champions, defending against the APA, the Basham Brothers, and the world's greatest tag team, Charlie Haas and Shelton Benjamin. So you had better workers in this one. But the same thing, just get names out there, get as many faces out there. I think they had a little bit more chemistry and better spots due to the talent level with these guys than the Raw guys did. But yet again, another set of champions, Scotty 2 Hotty and Rikishi, retaining their belts. So really nothing too big moving things along in any stories or directions. Just it was there because it was there. Now we're moving on to the back end of the show here. We have Victoria, the champion, women's champion, defending against Molly Holly. Now this match is a real women's match. I always said that the women's division in 2002 was just as strong as the women's division when this whole women's revolution was starting. The only difference is, back in 2002, there was no social media for us fans to let the company know, hey, give these girls a chance. Hey, let them wrestle. There was none of that. So the company just always marginalized them, gave them very little to work with, and eventually all that talent pool just filtered out, skimmed out, and went away. And it's a shame because those women could have done then what these women are doing now, and they deserve to. And the sad part is about this match is the story, if you've never heard about it, Molly Holly, she's the only reason this match happens. She realizes there's not going to be a women's match on the card. She sees there's this Playboy tag team match. She asks, hey, is there going to be a women's title match? And they say, nope, we only got room on the card for one women's match, and it's going to be those women in nightgowns. And that bugged her, and and I agree. That's awful, for especially the talent that she has and Victoria has and some of these other women have. And so she came up with the idea, I wonder if I offer to them to shave my head, if they'll put me on the card. They'll get us on. So she went with them and said, hey, let's do a match, women's title, and if I don't win the belt, you shave my head. And we'll just do it to where I lose and you shave my head. And it worked. They said, great, let's do it. And so it got the match on the card. Talk about sacrifice. A woman sacrificed her head of hair just so she could wrestle on the card at WrestleMania. Wrestle, as opposed to flaunting her body around. And the other part that bugs me about this match is they're out there, they're having a good, solid match, and Jerry Lawler, Jim Ross, because of the time frame, the era, can still not get away from objectifying these women for their looks and for the sexual prowess of the whole thing, instead of just calling it like a legit match the way these girls are working it. So, yes, Victoria ends up winning the match, defending the title, and Molly gets her entire head shaved clean. Next on the docket, on that one I rated it a 3 then, and I rated it a 3 now. It was a good, solid match. If they had had a little bit more time and a better gimmick than shaving head, it would have worked a lot better. Match number 10, Eddie Guerrero versus Kurt Angle. Now we come to this, right? I said, in my heart of hearts, I knew Kurt Angle was going to win the title. That's why I was there. When I look back at this match, it's even better than I remembered it. And when I remember it, it was a great match. Oh, it was so good. Horrible ending, but it was so good. Okay? If you get an opportunity to rewatch, I don't think this is a pay-per-view that anyone's going to have time to rewatch from beginning to end, but if you have an opportunity to rewatch a couple matches from it, this and the main event triple threat are definitely 2 matches you need to go back and watch. I think they could go down as the 2 best title matches on the same card in WrestleMania history. They really can. They were that good. But anyway, the ending has Kurt Angle trying to put the ankle lock on Eddie Guerrero, and Eddie has loosened his boot to the point where Kurt Angle rips the boot off. And in the moment he realizes this boot just came off, Eddie rolls him up in a small package and pins him and wins. Now, from where I'm sitting, Kurt Angle's got his back to me, so I really can't see this happening. When you watch it on TV, you can see the boot getting loosening up and how they're working it slowly and slowly to where it finally pops off. You don't see that live, and especially when Kurt Angle's back was to you, so it was just like this boot comes flying off. I'm like, what the heck? And before I realize, I can't even finish asking the question, what the heck, this match is over. Oh my gosh. I know everything is set in place and it's predetermined. I get that, I always have since the age of 6, but when you feel you were destined to see something, I'm not going to lie, I started feeling tears coming down my eyes, and I just put my head down so nobody could see. Now, what was interesting is the girl sitting next to me, she was also sitting by herself. She's a little younger than me. Her family had come over from Ireland, and when they came over, there was 5 of them. They all got tickets all over the arena. Her brother, I got a front row ticket. I see him in the pay-per-views wearing like a Kurt Angle jersey. Her brother and mother were somewhere else. Her sister was somewhere else, and she just happened to be next to me. So that was kind of nice. Going to WrestleMania with myself, I'm sitting next to someone who's also kind of there by themselves. But anyway, I just remember how nice she was, because here I am thinking, oh man, I don't need this girl seeing me cry. And so that's why I put my head down. And as I had my head down, she rubs my back. She puts her hand on my back and kind of rubs it. And she says, don't worry. Don't feel bad. It's okay. Triple H will probably lose tonight too. Because she had told me earlier that, Triple H was her guy. That was her guy. And you know what was really sad is when she tells me this, I'm thinking, because I'm so angry and hurt, I'm thinking, I hope Triple H loses too. Not just because I wanted Chris Benoit to win, because I want you to feel the pain I have to feel right now. If I have to feel this, I want everyone to feel this. Now, I get that's not the way a good person should react, but I was angry and I was hurt. So that was my thought was, I hope Triple H gets his tonight so that you can feel the same pain I'm feeling. I can rub your back. But anyway, it was a great match. Great ending. I rated it a 4 then. I rated it a 4.5 now. I mean, it just gets better with time. These two are the best workers in the business, and they laid out such a unique match. It's so hard in this business to come up with something unique, and they did exactly that, especially the ending. Another thing, though, is, so I said that when I bought this belt, it was going to be Kurt Angle's name on there. So when the pay-per-view was over and I got back to the hotel room, as soon as I walk in, my dad doesn't say, hey, how was the show? Hey, how's it going? As soon as I walk, he says, did Eddie win? Or he said, did Kurt win? No. And then I was done talking to him. I was like, oh, he's bringing this up again. So, and then I go pick up my cell phone. And sure enough, there's a text from my friend Henry. And his text message says, so are you going to put Eddie's name on the belt? Man, these guys were just ripping at my heart. I remember texting them back, F you, no way. And he just texts back like, ha ha ha. And so what I ended up doing was I ended up engraving the name of the event. It says WrestleMania 20, New York City, New York, and then the date, March 14, 2004. So I figured from this on, that would be the tradition. Instead of putting a particular person's name on there, I will put the event name on there to recognize when I got the belt and where I got it. So it still holds today. And in fact, there's actually one of the Fox diamonds on one of these back plates that's missing. When I got home, I looked at my belt. I was like, hey, one of the diamonds is missing. The Fox diamonds. It's on this back plate back here. And I thought, should I call the company and ask them to send me a replacement? I thought, no. I want this to symbolize the night that it didn't all go right. That this belt is imperfect because my night was imperfect. The ideas that I had for the night were imperfect. And that's what this belt will forever recognize. So I left it the way it is, and there's still that one fake diamond missing, and that's what it represents to me. Match number 11. The Undertaker versus Kane. This was a biggie because this is The Undertaker returning to his dead man gimmick. Okay? This was the first time ever I had been there live for a theatrical entrance. And let me tell you, it lived up to everything you thought you saw on TV. You can just feel it in the air. The goosebumps come onto your skin. It was awesome. You had the Druids come out with the flames, the return of Paul Bearer, which no one knew about, and then the Dead Man, who was this great hybrid